Something that's always made me pretty unique, and I think we can all look in a room like this, is the fact that talking about growing up, and I grew up here in Naples. My family's been in Southwest Florida since the late 1920s. My mom graduated Naples High School when they were just building Laley, so before that, and then my granny graduated when Naples High School was just a one-building school where Gulfview Middle School is now, for those of you that know where Gulfview Middle School is. Was a whole other different world, and I grew up really hearing a lot of those stories from my granny about different experiences that she had growing up here and in Sarasota and other areas where they were living at the time. Naturally, everybody was a fisherman or was in the fishing business and things like that. There really wasn't too much else going on. And at that age, growing up and hearing a lot of those stories about local history really got me involved in learning a lot of other history stories. My dad worked for the post office and had a mailman buddy that was in World War II, and he would tell different stories about his history and his journey and different things that he had done. And when I was in middle school, I grabbed a hold of every history book that I could get my hands on and started learning more and more about what was going on. And then when I had an opportunity to start volunteering in high school, I went to the Collier County Museum system. If anybody's been to any of the 5 county museums that are here in Collier County, I was at the one in the government complex and volunteered there through high school. And there came a time kind of right at the midway point of my freshman year when I was 14 that a board called the Tourism Development Council made a suggestion to the Board of County Commissioners that they were going to remove the funding of museums from our penny bed tax that we have here in Collier County. They eventually ended up succeeding later on, but at that time, a group of museum volunteers were going to go to this board meeting to speak because it wasn't looking good. There was maybe 1 or 2 commissioners that were going to be supportive of the museums, and staff kind of thought that the other 2 or 3 were pretty much, set in their ways, and they were going to vote against it. So I made the decision to skip school. I think other people who grew up here skipped school to go to the beach. And I'd made a decision that I was going to skip school and go to a Board of County Commissioners meeting. And also probably unlikely, where again, most people would have skipped school to go to the beach. They probably wouldn't have told their parents. Being 14, I couldn't drive, so had to tell my parents because I had to have some way to get to the board meeting. So my parents were in on it. My dad actually went with me to the county commissioner meeting and sat there with me through it. So not only did I skip school, but my parents knew about it, and my parents went there and basically supported it, which I think, always stands out. And so, I remember being there and definitely, I think at 14, I was definitely the youngest in that room that day. I don't know if anybody else has been and spoke and been, younger or not since then, but, definitely stood out. There was a lot of Marriott, Hilton, all the beach hotel, all the big hotels in town. All the hoteliers were for it because they were going to use that penny that they were going to take from museum funding and use it for advertising. Because we all know that, Marriott doesn't have an advertising budget. Hilton doesn't have an ad. They need that extra money to do advertising. And so they were all there for it because it was money for them. And we got up and supporters spoke, and there was a lot of people there in support of it. And all the commissioners were talking back and forth. One of the commissioners, past commissioners, Tom Henning, actually in his discussion points of which way he was going, he was actually one of those commissioners that was kind of a swing vote. And he actually made in his comments and said, well, if Jacob Winge can skip school to come to a meeting, that's good enough for me. And 2 other commissioners that really had a huge impact on my life were Commissioner Jim Coletta and Donna Fiala, who just retired this past election cycle in 2020. And I think they both saw me there that day as a young person wanting to get involved, and they really grabbed a hold of me. I would go to Board of County Commissioner meetings over the summer because they were on Tuesdays. I didn't skip any more school to go to them. And I would have lunch with Commissioner Coletta in his office, or I would go with Donna to these different things. And actually during that 2020 election cycle, I ended up running for Donna Fialo's commissioner seat, and she actually endorsed me for it, which was a real full circle of, now what's almost been, 15 years later of being involved in the community. And all of that started with skipping school to do something that is pretty unconventional, and didn't win that election. Different things happened. We had COVID. It really stopped making grassroots campaigns successful, but a lot of other things came out of that. I had a lot of other experiences to be able to meet other people and decision makers, and had a lot of other pieces that went along with it. Growing up here and skipping school to not go on a trip, not do something like that, not go anywhere with friends, but actually have my parents in on it, and skipping school to go to a county commissioner meeting to defend museum funding, and then a whole lot of experiences that went on past it and make me who I am today. So something that I'll never forget.